I will call this meeting back to order. I believe the agenda allows you to finish eating your lunch while the meeting continues. I think that was in the official language. So if you're still eating, that's absolutely fine. If you're still chatting with your neighbor, that has to stop. Okay. Also, if you have a verbal, what do we give? Like 30 seconds, 20 seconds? If you have a verbal announcement to make, if you could queue up at the mic right here, I'm going to take a look at the chat and see the flood of announcements that I need to make from the online people. Ooh. I think this is one. Union Hill in Denville has a holiday bazaar on November 23rd. These are in the chat, so you can find these yourselves if you like. First Presbyterian Church of Sakasana Messy Church, 5 to 7 p.m., September 15th, October 20th, and November 17th and December 8th. Wow, there's a blood. You better read that one. There's a lot of stuff going on there. Blood drive, a concert honoring veterans, November 10th, and December 7th, home for the holidays, 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Wreaths Across America, December 14th. Washington First Presbyterian Church will be providing games, crafts, and Halloween costumes during the town's festival in the Borough Day. Union Hill, Denville, Fall Fest, October 12th, noon to 3, food and games, holiday bazaar, November 23rd, crafts and vendors. Somerset Presbyterian Fall Bazaar include attic treasures. All right, crafts, gift baskets, food, baked goods, and more. And Union Hill Presbyterian Church of Denville, game night and tacos. Is that a Tuesday? I feel like that should be a Tuesday. I don't know if it is, but it's September 14th at 5:30. There's a pet blessing on September 29th. And a Fall Fest October 12th, noon to 3. And open mic night at Union Hill on November 16th. Fish and chip dinner, Franklin Press Church, October 18th, 4:30. Takeouts at 5. You can find the phone number there. For takeout, I guess, in the chat. Somerset Presbyterian Church Fall Bazaar, October 19th, 10 to 3. I told you they were going to flood in, by the way. And the program year is starting. Are you watching for that new thing that God is doing? Let information from one of the best church demographic providers for free. Share what you learned and what you plan to do and get $1,000 to do it. Contact Steve Shusett to talk about, what is that? Mission Sight? Mission Insight. Thank you. I'm getting old. And how you can use it. Mission Insight and how you can use it. And apparently they're going to give you $1,000. So I would contact Steve soon. Somerset Presbyterian Church Fall Bazaar, October 19th, 10 to 3. Donna Miller, First Presbyterian Church of New Vernon. Oh, and that's not an announcement. Okay, what do we got in the room?
All right.
No pressure.
No pressure. October 27th, 5 p.m. Boundbrook Presbyterian Church. Singer-songwriter Carrie Newcomer will be in concert. $30 at the door.
Boundbrook. Are there any other announcements? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to invite Pete Peterson, co-moderator of ACT, to come right back on up. And there's just a couple more things in their work that they would like to present.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Moderator, and thank you, Presbytery, for your action on the 2 action items that we had for this meeting. We have 2 more items. They're both presentations, and for the next one, I'd like to call our stated clerk resource staff person, Steve Stuchet, up to give us a presentation on boundary training for sessions.
Thank you. As of July 2023, the Book of Order has included the following. You can see it on the screen. G30106, Administration of Mission. Councils higher than the session may provide examples of policies and procedures that may be gathered into advisory handbooks. These examples illumine practices required by the Constitution, but left to councils for specific implementation. All councils, and a council is the session, presbytery, synod, general assembly, shall adopt and implement the following policies, and we've heard about some of these today: sexual misconduct policy, harassment policy, child and youth protection policy, and an anti-racism policy. Then there is this. Each council's policy shall include requirements for boundary training, which includes the topic of sexual misconduct and child abuse prevention training for its members at least every 36 months. Each council. What are councils, everybody? Sessions, presbytery, synod, general assembly. That means each council, including the session, has to have these policies. That means as of the Book of Order taking effect in July 2023, elders on session were supposed to have boundary training and child abuse sexual prevention training, and you have to take it every 3 years. If you serve 2 terms on session, you have to take it twice. And before people raise their hands, no, you are not in violation right now, even though all of this went into effect in July of 2023, because the Presbytery has been working out negotiations that you know about now for our insurance. And so until that was resolved, we didn't know with whom we could work. And so if you're able to do it by the end of this year with what I'm about to offer, that's great, but it will not be held against you if you don't. This time next year, I'll be telling you it's 2025, and by December 31st, 2025, everyone required had better do this, but we'll get to that in a moment. So we are in conversations, deep conversations with an organization called Ministry Safe. And we became aware of those because of the new insurers we have, Guide One and Brown, through the New Jersey Presbytery's Insurance Partnership. The founder and president of Ministry Safe is a national expert and attorney on matters of sexual abuse prevention. And he and this company are working with nearly every denomination in the United States. In discussion with Ministry Safe, here are some of the things we are working with them, negotiating with them on your behalf. Highlands Presbytery is a hub for the Presbytery. That means in this case, we are accountable just as you are accountable. We are going to be sued if you are sued, because it's our job to make sure you do the things that the denomination requires you to do. And so if something happens in your congregation, whatever it is, there's a good chance, a very good chance, the presbytery will be sued because someone will say, why didn't the presbytery make sure this person did the training? And then our attorneys will hash that out. So we are a hub in that we have to be able to see how you're doing and what you're doing, because if something happens, we have to explain why we weren't paying attention. Because of this relationship, we are looking for, and I think we have figured out a way to have a centralized system that will allow us to keep track from the 10,000-foot view of what your congregation is doing. We won't know all the things you have to do. We won't know all the people who are elders. We don't know when they were elected, anything. But we would be able to say these people took the test. We are negotiating that the presbytery will pay the annual subscription fee, which at this point is $400 per church. The presbytery will cover that in a fee we are negotiating with Ministry Safe so that it doesn't come to that for your congregation and the presbytery is not paying $400 times 78, which would probably boost your per capita up quite a bit. What would happen is the presbytery would cover the annual subscription fee for all of its 78 member churches. And then you as a congregation would have two options. One, you could cover the cost for your elders who have to take the exam. And I can tell you at least the sexual abuse prevention training is $8 as I speak. So it'd be $8 per person. There may be other tests, and I'll get to that in a moment, but either the church could do that or a church would have the power to say, this is something we ask of you as an elder. And it would be up, each congregation would make that decision for itself. The biggest outlay for the churches would be year one, saying we start with January 2025. And that's because every single elder on session would have to do this training so that you would be in compliance. But in 2026, only a third of your session would, because you're only replacing a third of your people, assuming normal tradition, rotation. So for those of you that were unaware that elders had to do this, and this is coming as a surprise, even if you had a session of 20 people, you're only looking at approximately 20 times 8 for year one. Again, we have to see what other tests might be required. What I can tell you is I have been given access to a lot of the different trainings and tests. And with this little presbytery meeting thing coming up, I haven't been able to do as many as I'd like, but I can tell you I did do the child sexual abuse prevention training. And the video is about an hour. It is recorded in front of a live audience. So there's a person like me standing here and talking, and then occasional PowerPoint slides. It's not, it's not an Oscar-winning video, but it's all well done. It's very informative. I certainly learned a lot, and I've done a lot of child sexual abuse prevention training, so it was good to learn new things. The test itself is 25 questions, and if you were paying attention to the video, you didn't have to be taking copious notes. If you're paying attention, you should be fine passing with 75%. If you weren't paying attention, I'm not sure what to tell you. You might just have to take the test again. But the nice thing about this system is I took the test and it marks it on a screen, and Sonia, whoever Sonia is, there she is right in front of me. She would be able to see, as would I, who has taken it so that we can keep track. Among the other trainings that we are considering, and we just I have to watch them to see what's most relevant, peer-to-peer sexual abuse training, which I'm learning is a much greater problem than people understood or identified in the past. And that is, for example, young adults who are pressuring other young adults. So the power dynamic, there is a power dynamic, but it's different than an adult with a child or a pastor and a member. It's young adults and young adults, and there are other power dynamics at work. But unfortunately, we know that people are not acting in the most appropriate ways. And so there are trainings available so that you can start to identify people who are exhibiting either being abused or the abuser, or so that you can train the people in your congregation so that they know what to look for. Since not everyone will be required to do it, you may be the person giving this training. There's a child safety workshop, reporting child sexual abuse, third-party use of facilities, which is a question we get a lot at the Presbytery, sexual harassment training for supervisors, and sexual harassment training for staff members. And that actually does not cover all of the trainings, but those are the trainings I plan to do over the next couple of months. Once some of these details are hammered out, these trainings would be the minimum standard. it would apply to everybody. In my negotiations, this has not been, some of you are under Brown and God one, and some of you aren't. My negotiation with them has been, if anybody is sued, we're going to be sued. And so you're going to be responsible anyway. So you might as well make sure that all of our churches have access to this training. But if you're working with a different insurer, or you decide you want to work with a different training provider, you can do that, but you have to meet our standards. So you'll have to say, we'd use something else. This is what we did. We may have to investigate and make sure it was in compliance, but it won't be simply the Old West where you can just do whatever you want. It does have to meet some standards. We're providing what we consider to be the best choice. If you're doing something else, you're going to have to explain it. For those who are clerks of session who are watching this or are here now, you will hear at our clerk of session workshop, which is coming up in just a few weeks, that there are going to be some changes to the minute review form because of this. And what I will be proposing is, well, propose is a little weak, actually. This is what will be expected, is that when you are informed that someone in your congregation has done this training, I should say someone on your session has, you'll have to record that month. And then at the end of the year, you'll have a cumulative list of everybody in 2025 who has done that. For those of you who are wondering why, since we'll have access to that information, again, all I will know is that so many people from a church took this training. But I don't know who all of your elders are. I don't even know what the size of your session is. So you have to keep track, because if you are sued, you have to demonstrate you did everything you could to make sure people were trained. And so you'll want to keep a running list of who is compliant. On October 17th at 7:30 via Zoom, there is going to be a meeting with the founder and owner of Ministry Safe, Gregory Love, and he's going to be walking through what is involved in this process. And by then we should have worked out a lot of the details so that you'll know exactly what you're responsible for, or at least closer to. Again, you can be sure the one $8 test you'll be doing. It's just with additional ones we feel you have to do. So watch for more information, and if you're so inclined, October 17th at 7:30. Can I ask some questions, Mr. Mullen?
If you like.
Does anyone have any questions?
Hi, Steve. I have a question online.
Go for it.
So I'm
Oh,
it's Lisa.
Can you just tell us who you are real quick?
Yeah, hi, it's Lisa Coulter. I'm from Old Greenwich Presbyterian. We actually already have Ministry Safe. We actually just started using it ourselves in like the last month. So we have an account already that we've already paid the $400 for. So would we have to redo everything we've already done? Should we hold off, or?
That's a very good question. I have been trying to speak to Mr. Love for a couple of days, and I'll run that by him and his problem solver and see what we can do.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks for getting on top of this.
You're welcome.
No.
Steve, the portion where the clerk has to record the names of people who completed the courses, is that beginning in 2025 and part of the review in 2026, or what is it right now?
The first option. So people will be expected to start recording January 1st. And when we receive your minutes for 2025, those names should be included. And that will be spelled out on the form.
Hello, I'm Catherine Scott Kirshner, minister member from the Presbyterian Church of Sussex. And my question is, would it be okay or an idea to bring the session together, watch the video together, and then have everyone take the test on their own? Be like, everyone show up for an hour and a half. We're going to do this training together. Would that be a possibility? But everyone takes their own test separately, quietly. Is that a possibility?
That is, if you go through all the videos at the very end, actually each slide will say, I verify that I have watched all of these or have done the training in the past. And so once you check that, the test comes up. So yes, if you all watched it together and then everybody just checks that box, they should be good.
Thank you.
Right, they'd have to log in individually.
We have questions online, Steve.
Okay, Wendy.
Hi, Steve, Wendy Deutsch, Clerk of Session, Morristown. I have an email that says boundary awareness training, $58. I wouldn't have mentioned it except you said $8. So is this more inclusive of every test?
I have no idea. I can only tell you that the test is $8 for that particular.
Steve, I can answer that. This is Jean.
Oh,
What Wendy's talking about is the boundary training that we require of pastors. And that is $58.
Thank you.
And that is, if you want to take that now and you're not a pastor, you can do that through us, but it will cost you $58. So that is the present boundary training that we have.
Hi, Steve. This is Betsy Engelhardt from West Milford Presbyterian Church. Can you hear me?
yes.
Okay. We have been members of Ministry Safe for 4 years, so I'm very familiar with the program. In fact, if you have questions, I might be able to answer them. But of course, my question is, we've already paid our $400 for the year. What do we do about that? But more importantly, the great part about this program is that, yes, indeed, it tracks every single person that has taken the test when they completed the test. And then it will remind you that in 3 years, hey, these people on this particular date will be out of date and therefore must register. So it's a great tracking device. But my question would be, because we have a private account, I can see everything that's happening with West Milford Presbyterian Church. Now that would be encompassed under Highlands, would it be a Highlands account? And would all that tracking information only be available through Highlands, where me as an administrator at West Milford wouldn't be able to see who took the test, when it was taken, and when it would need to be renewed?
I will confirm with that. My understanding is that the church will have access to that information, but it'll be a kind of a master policy so that the presbytery also has access.
Okay.
Wouldn't be shut out.
All right. And then in answer to that other question, every single test has a fee associated with it. So the child prevention sexual misconduct is an $8 fee. If you choose any of the other training, it would have a separate fee associated.
Correct. Thank you.
All right. Thanks.
Great that you're already doing this and have been.
Oh, John, I believe John has a question.
Yes. John, we're Union Hill Presbyterian Church, Denville. You've talked about elders. What about, well, I see there's a question about deacons, but Sunday school teachers, youth group leaders?
At present, people who work with children have to have background checks, but the book of order has not changed to encompass them as well. It says councils. So even if it may be a great idea for your deacons to do it, you would just decide you want your deacons to do it and they would pay and take the test. But they are not obligated, and you aren't obligated to make sure they do, and we aren't obligated to track deacons. But ruling elders on session, that's who this applies to, the council.
Steve, may I say something also along that to answer that question?
Please.
If your sexual misconduct or child protection policy says that they are required, then they should do that. But you need to check your own individual policy, because some have included that in their policies.
Thank you, Gene.
Is there a
mechanism by which, say, a church that wants to have their own account to avail themselves of the many different tests to sort of, kind of be ahead of the curve with regards to Book of Order. If we wanted to have our own account, do our own testing, is it easy enough for us to report to the Presbytery that the Book of Order requirements have been fulfilled?
I would have to give it some thought. On the face of it, it sounds like if you wanted to have your own account, et cetera, you could, just as you could have another insurer. But your minutes would have to reflect month by month who's done it, and at the end of the year, everybody who's done it that year. But I reserve the right to find out that isn't the way it works, but that's how I think it works.
Steve, Steve, thank you for your report, for your work on that. And Pete?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Moderator. This concludes the ACT report.
Great, Pete, thank you. Thank you to the ACT for all that work. I know you're super sad or super excited, most likely, but I believe it's time for me to hand over the gavel to the much better and efficient driver. So Sue, if you would return, that'd be great.
Thank you, Chad, but not for much longer. I'd like to now call on Reverend Amy Lincoln of the Flemington Presbyterian Church to present a report from the nominating committee.
Good afternoon. This is happy work that we have to do. The nominating committee is recommending that we elect Reverend Chad Rogers from the Johnsonburg camp. He already disappeared. Okay. As the next moderator of the Presbytery of the Highlands for 2025. He is back there. And then also the Reverend Ryan Herron of the First Presbyterian Church Rockaway as the vice moderator of the Presbytery of the Highlands for 2025.
Mr. Stated Clerk, do we want Chad and Ryan to leave us briefly for the vote?
That's certainly available, yes, ma'am.
Would you like to leave? Just in case anybody's got anything bad to say about you. So the proposal from the nominating committee is before you. Is there any discussion? Yes, yeah, he is. All right, let's vote. All in favor, raise your hands in the room. Put the green check mark online. Is there anybody lower your hands? Thank you. Is there anybody opposed?
Madam Moderator, you need to give the online folks a little more time.
Sorry, I apologize.
They can't get their hands up as fast as the room does.
Would you like?
We have reached the
You are correct.
there.
Are there any nominations from the floor? All right. Second. That can backfire. Right, you're correct. You are absolutely correct. I apologize. So going back to the original motion, is it carried online, Jean?
Yes, it has carried.
Okay. So the nominations are carried for Chad to be moderator next year and Ryan to be vice moderator. Would somebody like to bring them back in? We can clap. I'm applauding. Thank you. Thank you.
Seminary's Institute for Youth Ministry was the workshop leader. Moore led the group through the design thinking process to creatively reimagine what youth ministry can look like today in our own contexts. Here's what some of the attendees said about that afternoon. Their favorite part of the day was, quote, the brainstorming ideas, or the practical conversations within their small group, and the sense of community and hospitality. When asked about what they took away from Moore's presentation, attendees said, hope for future planning, the reminder to use our network of resources, and the whole process of design thinking will be helpful across all my ministry. The team wants to give our deepest thanks to Camp Johnsonburg for hosting us once again, to Liz Moore for leading in this workshop, and for all the attendees who came together to try something new. Remember, Liz taught us, the more ridiculous, the better. And if you're wondering, what in the world is this design thinking process? There are handy little handouts here in the dining hall over on the side table, the console table thing near the doors. And they're also on the Presbytery's website. And this outlines how to kind of do the design thinking process. This is based for youth ministry, but you can think of it in more ways than just that. It doesn't have to be just for youth ministry. Also, you can find out more in our report. Triennium is happening next summer in Louisville, Kentucky. I'm glad Robin's excited for Triennium. And our team would love to have more people join us in planning for this opportunity for our Presbytery's youth to see the wider Presbyterian community at Triennium. This will be the first one since, believe it or not, 2017. And brand new, it'll be in Louisville, or wherever you want to say it, rather than at Purdue. And last but not least, this past March, our very own Steve Shusett led a family spirituality day, and this coming March 1st, 2025, it's going to happen again. So keep that date in mind to tell yourself or any younger families in your congregations, and be on the lookout for more information about the upcoming Family Spirituality Day.
Thank you, Catherine. So continuing with the youth theme, I'm very happy to call on Catherine Morgan, a member of the Community Presbyterian Church Ringwood, to share her story on mission trips.
Hi, my name is Catherine Morgan. I'm from Ringwood, New Jersey, and I go to Community Presbyterian Church. I also go to school at Centenary University, about 20 minutes down the road, and I go to church at Hackettstown First Pres there. So I am lucky enough to have the opportunity to work with a ministry called Sun Servants, who is a group based out of Chattanooga, Tennessee. They are a mission ministry who their kind of verse that they based their ministry off of is John 12:26, which is, whoever serves me must follow me. Where I am, my servant will also be. My Father will honor the one who serves me. And they kind of have a motto, which is to love is to serve. I've had the opportunity I went on my first mission trip with this ministry when I was 12 years old. So I just turned 22 this summer. So it's been a decade of me working with them. This summer, I was a part of their summer staff. This is my second year being a part of that. Their summer staff is a group of college students who work to maintain flow of camp. We do things like sharing our testimonies. We are able to interact with the students and kind of help foster their growth in spirituality and their ability to serve in the communities that we're a part of. Sun Servants was created in the 80s. My mom has been involved with them since the 90s, so I've spent a lot of time with them. They have gone to over 40 places nationally and internationally to do service trips. And they provide trips to middle schoolers, high schoolers. They do combination trips with middle and high schoolers, and they do adult trips as well. We start every morning off with a devotional time, and we end every night with a worship service. This summer, I was able to participate in a lot of different types of work. My first trip, I was in West Virginia, and I was part of a group that worked on restabilizing a walking bridge that was sliding down into a creek. We also moved a set of stairs that were getting wet and were covered in algae, and were able to extend the cover over them. I was then in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and we painted a home with a whole bunch of middle schoolers, which was quite a feat. And then I had the opportunity to go to the Yucatan in Merida, which is where they first started their trips. And we put 2 roofs over churches, and it required about 90,000 pounds of concrete between the 2. I then returned to West Virginia, and there I was on a group that was finishing up projects from the first time we were there last summer. So we built a wheelchair ramp roof, so it covered the ramp so it wouldn't get slick. We finished a porch roof. We created a handrail for a set of stairs the handrail had rotted off. We repaired a hole in the top of someone's roof, and we worked on replacing underpinning on trailers. I have had so many amazing opportunities through this ministry. I have met my biggest mentors in my faith. I truly believe that my adult faith would not be as strong as it is without this ministry. I've met lifelong friends, and I love to serve. This is a big part of my faith for me. And I just feel extremely lucky that I've had the opportunity to do this. I look forward to continuing to do this in the future. And there's a few more slides on here with pictures. Okay. But these are all from this summer. There's going to be a picture of a trip that pops up where you'll see 12-year-old me soon. I have been mostly going to Panther, West Virginia. And it's such an amazing place. You really feel the community and the relationships. I've had the opportunity to go to houses that I've been to before and worked on before, and the homeowners remember you. And it's amazing being able to go back and continue to form relationships and see the impact that you've had on their lives when you return. And it's just a really big part of my life, and I love sharing about it. So if you have any questions, I'll be around for the rest of the day. So thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. I now call on, I think, Jean Radek to present a report from the discernment team.
Thank you. Thank you. Hang on. Okay. My lunch fairy just came to pick up my lunch dishes. Thank you. The vision team, the discernment team, we have worked this last summer to discern what is the Presbytery's call through the vocation statement. So that's what been the next step in our process. And this is what is the vision that goes with the vocation statement. Can I have the next slide? Is there another slide? Yeah. And the next slide. All right, this summer we worked on the process of coming up with a vision statement, a vocation statement. And this is part of the process of, we did all the gathering and we had all the small groups, you remember all that. We pulled that together and then met, and we have been developing this vocation statement. So the vocation statement that was approved by the ACT just recently, this is actually more of our working vision vocation statement. And this is the one that we will be using for our next steps. And the vocation statement is, God calls the Presbytery of the Highlands to equip, enable, and nurture the Presbytery community as we exemplify the love of Christ in and through creative ministries, preparing our faith communities to embrace and engage a new season. Next slide. So using that as a vocation statement, the next step is visioning. And in the visioning is we take what God is calling us to do, that's the vocation statement, and saying, how are we going to live that out? So we vision what is going to be. So what is, the question we ask is, what is God's vision for us with using this vocation statement? What is God up to in this time and place? The vision now is not the vision of one person, but the vision of the whole community. The vision for ministry is not defined as looking back to the time of our legacy Presbytery events or programs, nor a time when there were lots of people and there were lots of resources. The vision looks forward to what can be in the context of the present. So next slide. So what we're going to do here for about 5 minutes, we're only going to take 5 minutes, is we are going to look at, we believe that God has a future for this presbytery, and using our vocation statement and other information that has been gathered so far, where do you, as a presbytery or individual, see, dream, or believe is the future God is leading or calling or pointing the presbytery towards? What is our future? What are we going to be doing as an example? An example I have is the vocation statement says the presbytery is to equip. And so the visioning on that would be, this could be, the presbytery will regularly provide leadership training for newly elected elders and deacons. And we're going to do, so what we're going to do now is we're going to do a little brainstorming session as we prepare for the visioning retreat that will be in October. And that will be the leadership of the presbytery, the moderators of the committees, the ACT and discernment team, and others who've been invited. They'll have a visioning retreat sometime in October. So what we'll do is, on your tables, you should have pads of paper and stuff. What I want you to do is write your responses to what are things that could happen or be done from our vocation statement. So example, like I said before, we're supposed to equip. So one way we equip is by providing leadership. training. Another is enable or nurture the community. How are we going to do that? And this is just brainstorming, and you just, write down all the ideas you have, toss them in the center, of the table, and Liz or Sonia will collect them for me later. So don't overthink this. Just go with brainstorming. It's what everything is fair game to put on there. Write as many ideas and visioning as you can in 5 minutes. And those of you who are online, use the chat. So you think of something, just type it in and just put it in the chat. And those of you who are in the room, feel free to talk to others on the table. I know it's a little harder for those online to do that, but use the chat. You can respond to the chat, that kind of thing. But we're going to give you 5 minutes starting right now. I'm going to set my time. It had been a cloudy day all day, but as the dusk was arriving, the clouds were breaking up and there was a thin line of blue across the horizon. And the setting sun appeared in from behind the clouds and shone its light right through that small break of clouds and hit that island and illuminated the island with this glorious orange and yellow. Just for a few moments, I was able to capture it on my camera. So visioning is the shining of the light on those places where God already is and the places where God wants us to be. Keep that in mind. And we will be taking your ideas forward to our visioning retreat that will be held sometime. Now it's going to be in October. Next slide. Oh, there's the statement again. Next slide. Now I'm going to call on either Linda or Hannah. I'm not sure who's in the room, and they're going to give us an update on the Presbytery Scramble.
Yeah, Sue just said I got the short straw. So this is just a thank you. Remember way back in the spring, the red roses and the naming of the pairings and who gets to spend time with who. We had a scramble. We had a scramble because we know that one of the most important things we can do to move this presbytery forward is get to know each other. And the best way to get to know each other is actually to be in one another's company. So we asked you to volunteer your congregations, and we magically paired you together, and we said sometime around Pentecost, go worship with each other, swap pulpits, swap elders, go hang out, have lunch, have a good time. And boy, did you. We had 16 congregations, as far as I can tell, participate in this. How many churches total do we have? 78. So 16 out of 78, not so great. But how many of you participated in that? Your congregation was part of that. Online, put your hand up if you did that. It was a blast. We made relationships with people we didn't know. And I'm speaking as Boundbrook at the, kind of southern tip, part of a different presbytery at one time, moving into a place of the unknown. How wonderful to be in the company of the Fairmont Presbyterian Church and get to know them and worship with them. And, eventually Mike and I, their pastor and me, we got together and we had breakfast, and all of a sudden relationships are built. So I don't know about Hannah, but I'm guessing we might be willing to do it again. Season 2 of the Presbytery Scramble next spring. Think about it, start talking to your sessions about it. My goal for you would be, instead of 16, let's get at least 32 congregations swapping pulpits somewhere in the Pentecost period of time in our church lectionary cycle. So thank you to all the congregations that participated, and the challenge is there. see who gets your rose at the next Presbytery Scramble.
Thank you. Thanks, Linda. Thanks, Jean. So now we move to our final video from the General Assembly, from a General Assembly Commissioner by Ruling Elder Craig Bart.
Peace.
Thank you, Craig. So is there any new business for the Assembly? I don't see any online. It doesn't seem to be any in the room either. So seeing none, as we move into our worship service, I would ask for a motion that this meeting conclude with the benediction. A second? There's no discussion, so all in favor, raise your hands. Is anybody opposed? The motion carries. Thank you. We'll move into worship.
Be bold in the claiming of the gospel for the whole creation. Be brave in the lifting up of the life of God in every place. Be firm in carrying the holy name of Jesus into the palaces of worldly power. Be gentle in the understanding of yourselves and one another. And may the songs of the Creator sound with love in all the earth, and the tenderness of Christ Jesus over the wounds of the people, and the truth of the Holy Spirit rise free in every age. Amen.
Amen.